Good morning and Boker Tov from Sinai Temple here in Los Angeles. Thank you for joining me for our weekly study of the Torah, the Parasha Tashavua. We've arrived at a pivotal moment in the book of Genesis. We have journeyed through the creation of the world, the trials of Abraham, our forefather, and the transformative struggles of Yaakov, of Jacob. Now we turn to Parashat Vayeshev, a portion that reads more like a dramatic novel than a list of laws. It's a story of jealousy, betrayal, exile, and temptation. Yet beneath the surface of this family drama lies the profound machinery of destiny. The Parasha begins with a desire for quiet. The opening verse, Genesis chapter 37, verse 1, states, Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz megurei aviv be'eretz Canaan. And Jacob dwelt in the land of his father's sojournings, in the land of Canaan. Rashi, the great medieval commentator, is sensitive to the word Vayeshev, and he dwelt. He notes that Jacob had just endured 20 years of labor with Lavan, the terror of meeting Esav, and the tragedy of Dinah. Rashi comments, Bikesh Yaakov leshev b'shalva. Jacob sought to dwell in tranquility. He wanted to retire. He wanted peace. But the text continues immediately, Kafatz alav Rogzo shel Yosef. The agitation of Joseph sprang upon him. Here lies our first lesson. The life of a patriarch, or indeed the life of anyone committed to a life of meaning, is not static. We do not achieve a plateau of tranquility in this world. As the sages teach us, the righteous have no rest in this world. The story of our people is one of constant movement. Just as Jacob sought peace, the wheels of history began to turn, leading us down to Mitzrayim, to Egypt. The conflict begins with love, but it's a love that's mismanaged. The Torah tells us that Yisrael, Jacob, loved Joseph more than all of his sons because he was Ben Zekunim, a child of his old age. To mark this distinction, he famously made him a katonet pasim, a coat of many colors, or perhaps a coat of fine wool. The reaction of his brothers is visceral. Vayir'u echav, ki oto ahav avihem mikol echav, vayisnu oto, velo yachlu dabru leshalom. Genesis chapter 37, verse 4. And his brothers saw that their father loved Joseph, loved him more than all the other brothers, so they hated him, and they could not speak to him peacefully. Let's look closely on the Hebrew there. Velo yachlu dabru leshalom. They could not speak to him peacefully, in peace. Rashi, usually quick to defend the righteous, makes an interesting observation here. He says that in their disgrace, we find their praise. They did not speak one way with their mouths and another with their hearts. They were honest in their hatred. They did not fake civility. However, the Ramban Nachmanides offers a deeper psychological reading. He suggests that the coat was a sign of royalty. It wasn't just a gift. It was a nomination of leadership. The brothers realized that the covenant of Abraham might be split again, just as it was with Ishmael and Isaac, or Esav and Jacob. They feared that they were being written out of the Jewish story. This teaches us about the corrosive nature of silence. When communication breaks down, violence often follows. The brothers could not speak to him. There was no dialogue, no mediation. When we stop speaking to one another, we cease to see the humanity in the other. We see this in our own lives and certainly in our broader society. The cessation of speech is the beginning of the tragedy. Joseph, of course, exacerbates the tension with his dreams. Dreams of sheaves bowing down to him, of stars bowing down to him. He lacks the maturity to keep these visions to himself. When his father sends him to check on his brothers in Shechem, the brothers see him approach and conspire to kill him. Reuven, the oldest, attempts to save him. He suggests throwing Joseph into a pit rather than shedding blood, intending to return later to rescue him. The description of the pit in verse 24 of chapter 37 is famous. Vehabor reik, ein bo mayim. The pit was empty, there was no water in it. The phrasing seems redundant. If it is empty, reik, of course there's no water. So why does the Torah add, there was no water in it? The Talmud in Shabbat 22a provides a chilling answer. Water was not in it, but snakes and scorpions were in it. This is a profound spiritual principle. There's no such thing as a vacuum in the human soul or in the world. If a pit is empty of water, which represents Torah and life, it is not simply neutral. It becomes filled with snakes and scorpions. It becomes filled with toxicity. In our own lives, we often strive to empty our minds or check out from reality, but the Torah warns us that if we do not actively fill our lives with positive content, with meaning, with Torah, with acts of kindness, negative forces will rush in to fill the void. Neutrality is an illusion. We must pursue the good actively. Joseph is sold. The brothers dip the coat into blood and present it to Jacob, who falls into inconsolable mourning. And then abruptly, the camera of the Torah shifts. Chapter 38 leaves Joseph and focuses entirely on Judah. In verse 1, chapter 38, it begins, Vayahi ba'et hahi, vayered Yehuda me'et Echav. It came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brothers. Why this interruption? Why do we pause the story of Joseph in Egypt to learn about Judah's failed marriage, the death of his sons, and his encounter with his daughter-in-law Tamar? The text said Judah vayered, went down. Rashi explains that his brothers demoted him. They blamed him for the grief of their father. They said, "You told us to sell him. If you had told us to return him, we would have listened." But the story of Judah and Tamar is actually the turning point of Jewish history. Tamar, disguised, becomes pregnant by Judah. When she is about to be executed, she produces Judah's seal and staff, sending a message, "I am pregnant by the man to whom these belong." Judah is faced with a choice. He can deny it. He's a powerful chieftain. She's a vulnerable widow. He can let her die and save his reputation. Instead, he speaks 3 words that change the world. Tzedakah mimena. She is more righteous. Tzedakah mimeni. She is more righteous than me. This is the first time in the Torah that a leader admits fault without being coerced. Adam blamed Eve. Eve blamed the snake. Cain deflected. Judah takes responsibility. Because of this act, Judah merits to become the ancestor of King David. Leadership in our tradition is not about perfection. It's about accountability. It's about the ability to say, "I was wrong." The juxtaposition of Joseph and Judah is critical. Joseph is being tested in Egypt. Judah is being tested in Canaan. Both are undergoing a descent, a yerida. But both are being forged into the leaders who will eventually sustain the Jewish people. We return to Joseph in chapter 39. He has been brought down to Egypt. He is a slave in the house of Potiphar, the chief butcher. And yet, the text tells us something remarkable. Chapter 39, verse 2. Vayahi Adonai et Yosef, Vayahi ish matzliach. And God was with Joseph, and he was a successful man. Note that up until this point in the Parasha, God's name has barely been mentioned by the characters. The brothers don't speak of God, Jacob is mourning, but in the depths of Egypt, in the darkest place, God was with Joseph. Joseph rises to become the overseer of the house. He is handsome and successful, and this attracts the attention of Potiphar's wife. She attempts to seduce him day after day. The text says, Vayima'en, and he refused. This is one of the great moral stands in the Bible. Joseph is a slave. He has no rights. He's alone, no family watching him. He could easily rationalize this. He could say, my brothers betrayed me, My God abandoned me. Why should I hold on to my morals? But he refuses. He says to her, how could I do this great wickedness and sin against God? The Midrash asks, what gave him the strength to resist? It answers that in the moment. Nir'ah lo demut deyukno shel aviv. The image of his father's face appeared to him. Joseph remembered who he was. He remembered Jacob. He remembered that he was part of a story larger than himself. This is the definition of integrity. It's not what we do when we are in the sanctuary or when we are surrounded by our community. It's what we do when we are in Egypt, when we are anonymous, when no one knows us. Joseph teaches us that our identity travels with us. We carry the image of our fathers, the values of our tradition, into the most secular and challenging spaces. Because of this integrity, Joseph suffers. Potiphar's wife accuses him falsely, and he is thrown into prison. Once again, he hits rock bottom. And once again, the Torah says, Vayahi Adonai et Yosef. But God was with Joseph. Chapter 39:21. Even in prison, Joseph rises. He becomes the administrator. And there, he meets the royal cupbearer and the royal baker, who are troubled by dreams. And famously, Joseph notices their pain and says, why are your faces downcast today? Chapter 40, verse 7. This is an incredible detail. Joseph himself is in a dungeon, unjustly accused, kidnapped from his home. He has every right to be bitter, to be self-absorbed. Instead, he notices the pain of others. The Seforno points out that this sensitivity is the key to his redemption. Because he cares about others, he asks them about their dreams. Because he interprets their dreams, he will eventually be brought before Pharaoh. When he interprets, he says, Halo le'Elohim pitronim? Do not interpretations belong to God? Genesis chapter 40, verse 8. This is a new Joseph. The boy who bragged about his own dreams in chapter 37 is now the man who attributes all wisdom to God in chapter 40. He has learned humility. He understands that his gifts are not his own. They are channels for the divine. Parashat Vayeshev leaves us on a cliffhanger. The cupbearer is released, as Joseph predicted, but the text says, the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. Joseph remains in prison. If we look at Vayeshev as a whole, we see a pattern. It's a story of Hester Panim, the hidden face of God. God does not speak to Joseph directly. There are no angels, no pillars of fire. There are only human actions. A father's favoritism, brother's jealousy, a wandering stranger who points the way to Dothan, a slave caravan, a prison cell. Yet, though these seem seemingly random and tragic events, the destiny of the Jewish people is being secured. Joseph had to go to Egypt so that the family could survive the famine. The descent was necessary for the ascent. And this is a powerful message for us today. We often find ourselves in situations that feel chaotic or unfair. We feel we have been thrown into a pit. We feel forgotten. Vayeshev teaches us to trust the process. It teaches us that even when God is silent, God is present. We learn three vital things from the characters in this parasha. From the brothers, we learn the dangers of allowing envy to fester and the catastrophe that comes when we stop speaking to one another. We must maintain dialogue, even with those whom we disagree. From Judah, we learn that a leader is not someone who never makes mistakes. but someone who owns their mistakes. We must have the courage to say, I was wrong. And from Joseph, we learn that we can be alone in a strange land and still remain true to our values. We learn that true success is feeling God's presence with us, whether we are in the palace or the prison. As we move through the darkness of winter, and as we approach the lights of Hanukkah this weekend, let us carry the light of Joseph. Let us remember that our current struggles are often the seedlings of our future redemption. I wish everyone an early Shabbat Shalom, an early Chag Urim Sameach, a happy Hanukkah, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.